Welcome to Non-Verbal Communication, brought to you by NHS Education South West. We'll be aiming to explore the use of different gestures, tone of voice, silence, space, and other aspects of non-verbal communication. Let's start with the basic channels of communication. The face shares a lot of useful information about what a person's thinking and how they're feeling. Later, we'll be looking at micro-expressions in more detail. Later, we'll look at gait and posture, and we'll be thinking about the importance of the space between a speaker and a listener, depending upon the nature of the interaction. There are a range of different gestures that are sometimes interpreted in different ways, depending on which country you come from. Common hand gestures, including pointing to something to draw attention to it, although this is not really advisable when dealing with people, as it can come across as being aggressive or rude. A thumbs up sign is normally a sign that things are agreeable. And sometimes people use one in phone messages to show that they agree or they're happy with something that's being suggested. People tend to cross their fingers as a sign of good luck. And this is sometimes done when someone is hoping for a positive outcome, such as when going to an interview or an audition. Vocalics consist of 3 linguistic elements: stress, intonation, rising and falling tone, and rhythm. Researchers at New York University Faculty of Language and Communications and language specialists at the United Nations headquarters found that combining vocalics with public speaking skills, or what's called a powerful speaking style, colours our words with a meaning and emotion that motivates others to act. They recommend this combination as being pivotal to giving excellent presentations, radiating confidence, and applying skills like influence and persuasion to achieve success. To harness the power of your voice, you can raise the vocal volume to energize your messages. Vocal power is a desirable trait, often attributed to experienced professionals who command attention through their vocal delivery. By tapping into the power of pitch or vocal resonance, they use stress to convey their intentions with sincerity and self-belief. The effective use of word stress is all about emphasizing what linguists call focus words. When you place stress on certain words, you emphasize elements of a message and gradually move the direction of a conversation towards your preferred outcome. Even when the slightest nuances can significantly change the meaning of your sentences, express your intentions and influence the interpretation of your messages by your audience. Non-verbal communication can be divided into different categories, depending upon the area of the body that's used to convey a signal. Kinesics describes body motions such as shrugs, foot tapping, drumming fingers, eye movements such as winking, facial expressions and gestures. Proxemics relates to your orientation and positioning in relation to other people. Haptics describes the use of touch. Oculesics is all about eye contact. Chronemics relates to the use of time, such as waiting and pausing. Vocalics is about the tone of voice, timbre, volume and speed. Posture relates to the position of the body, a person's stance, the position of the trunk, the positioning of arms and legs, and the angle of the body. Adornments, such as clothing, jewellery, and an individual's hairstyle. And importantly, the gait of an individual. Walking, running, staggering, limping, or even slouching all tell us something about the frame of mind and communicating. We'll be looking at some of these in greater detail. Oculesics, or the study of the eyes, involves becoming aware of the gaze and the direction of gaze, whether the look is a stare or a glance or something in between, the length of eye contact and what is happening with muscles around the eyes. It also involves awareness of the pupil size. Staring or gazing suggests wonder or awe, whereas raised eyes and glaring, with the chin jutting forward, suggests dominance or defiance. Looking directly into someone's eyes as you speak gives the impression of honesty and integrity, but the eye contact should be just long enough. It's been suggested that 7 seconds will suffice, and longer would be uncomfortable for the other person. The eyes play a significant role in communicating when you're wearing a mask. This was investigated by Alison Bernstein in 2020, who made some helpful suggestions to help improve communication from behind a mask. Amongst these were smiling with your eyes, known as smizing, writing inspiring messages on the masks. And she also made the helpful suggestion that wearing a photograph of yourself smiling, and if appropriate, wearing scrubs, was a good way of putting people at ease, since they could see what you looked like without the mask. Tone and pitch are symbols of the way in which an individual feels. They're often referred to as paralinguistic features. A high pitch will often be interpreted as a sign of stress. Speaking very quickly can also be a sign that the individual feels anxious. A monotonous delivery might convey low mood. Falling and rising tone can alter the meaning of a phrase. There's a difference between "Are you coming?" and "Are you coming?" and even "Yes" and "Yes." Placing the stress on a specific word can also change the intended meaning of a phrase. Examples of different stress changing the meaning are: I asked her for 10 red roses. 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 And finally, I asked her for 10 red roses. Try the same exercise with the phrase, "Are you going to tell me?" Pacing is a way of discreetly changing a person's interactions with you by trying to speak more slowly and calmly when the other person is evidently feeling anxious and is speaking quickly and in a high-pitched manner. As a result, their pace will start to slow down and they will feel less anxious. Leading is noticing the tone, pitch and speed and setting up a new model of delivery of speech for them to gradually adapt their own speech to. Chronemics is an aspect of non-verbal communication that relates to the use of time. One definition is the interrelated observation of one's use of time and a specialised elaboration of culture. Cultures can be considered by some as polychronic or monochronic. Monochronic cultures, things are done one at a time. Time is scheduled, arranged and managed. There's quite a few countries that are considered to be monochronic. Amongst these include Germany, UK, Scandinavia, Canada and Switzerland. In polychronic cultures, several things can be done at once, and there's a more fluid approach to time scheduling. Amongst the countries that are polychronic include East Asia, Latin America and some Arab countries. There's a range of uses of time that can send out different signals. Waiting time, making people wait, can be a sign of dominance. Work time, scheduled time for specific meetings and appointments. Talking time, beginning and ending interactions and the length of utterance can signify authority in an interaction. Monochronic people tend to do things one at a time, whereas polychronic people do a few things at once. Monochronic people concentrate on a task that's set before them, whereas it's usual for polychronic people to concentrate on events happening around them. Monochronic people consider time commitments such as deadlines and schedules seriously, but it's goals and results that matter more with polychronic people. Whilst monochronic people are low in context and require information, polychronic people are high context and already have the information they need. Monochronic people are committed to the job and end results, whilst polychronic people are committed to people and relationships. Monochronic people dedicate themselves to plans, but it's easier to change plans often and easily if you come from a polychronic culture. Where monochronic people are concerned with privacy and individual ownership, polychronic people are more concerned with community and shared connections. In monochronic cultures, the emphasis is on prompt time recognition, regardless of relationships or circumstances, whereas in polychronic cultures the emphasis is response based on nature of relationship and circumstances. Monochronic people have a strong tendency to build temporary practical relationships, but it's usual for polychronic people to have a strong tendency to build lifetime familial relationships. Haptics is the study of touch as a form of non-verbal communication, and the term arises from the Greek word aptikos. Touch is used in many ways in our daily lives, such as greeting, comfort, affection, task accomplishments and control. You've probably engaged in some of these behaviours today. If you shook hands with someone or hugged a friend, then you use touch to greet and give affection. If you visited a hairdresser's or a barber to have your hair cut, you were touched with the purpose of task accomplishment. You might have met with a friend who was upset and touched them on the shoulder or elbow to ease the pain and provide comfort. Finally, you may recall your parents or guardians putting an arm around your shoulder to help you walk faster if there was a need to hurry you along. In this case, your parent or guardian was using touch for control. A range of factors impact how touch is perceived. These factors are the duration, frequency and intensity of the touch. Duration is how long touch endures, frequency is how often touch is used, and intensity is the amount of pressure applied. Touch is a form of communication that can be used to initiate, regulate and maintain relationships. It's a very powerful form of communication that can be used to communicate messages ranging from comfort to power. Anthropologist Edward Hall coined this word, proxemics, in the early 1960s and classified four major proxemic zones: the intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. Standing too close can make a person feel uncomfortable and, in some ways, threatened, whereas in some circumstances it's acceptable to be in their personal space, particularly where an examination is required. A distance of less than 2 feet or 60 centimetres is considered to be intimate, whereas a distance of 2 to 4 feet is considered personal. Social distance is between 4 feet and 12 feet, and being it a public distance, such as when in an audience or at a conference or concert, is 12 feet or over. It's worth noting that certain symbols are a means of communication non-verbally. A piece of jewellery, a tattoo, a lapel badge, headwear, uniform or ceremonial dress all communicate a message to the outside world. Some commonly witnessed behaviours can be interpreted as follows. A brisk, erect walk is a sign of confidence, but sitting with the legs crossed and kicking the foot slightly is a sign of boredom. Generally, sitting with legs slightly apart indicates that the individual feels relaxed, but crossing the arms on the chest is a sign of defensiveness. Individuals walking with shoulders hunched and their hands in their pockets appear dejected, and they possibly experience a lower mood. Touching the cheek is a sign of evaluation, whereas touching the side of the nose can show doubt. Rubbing the eyes is often a sign of disbelief or weariness, and clasping the hands behind the back is a demonstration of anger or frustration. Locking the ankles and knees also shows fear or apprehension, whereas resting the head in the hand is the symbol of boredom. Micro-expressions are very brief, facial expressions lasting a fraction of a second. There are 7 emotions that have been identified by Ekman as having universal signals: anger, fear, sadness, disgust, contempt, surprise, and happiness. Micro-expressions were first described by Haggard and Isaacs. The patients in their experiments did not know how they were feeling. Ekman and Friesen went on to show that training could help people to recognise micro-expressions, which happen when people have tried to hide their feelings either from themselves or from other people. On first sight, it's not possible to tell whether these emotions have been suppressed or repressed. Why are micro-expressions important? They can improve your emotional intelligence. You develop empathy to understand other people. They help you to recognise and better manage your own emotions. They enable you to spot concealed emotions. They help individuals to develop better social skills. With anger, the eyes show an intense look with or without white under the eyes. Where the mouth is concerned, the jaws and lips are pressed together and the mouth is narrow. Sometimes the lower lip appears to be bigger. With contempt, half of the upper lip is tightened using a muscle called the risorius, which primates don't have. It's very much a human expression. And the head's often tilted back. Where disgust is concerned, wrinkles appear on and around the nose, the upper lip rises, and the lower lips can go off at an axis. Sometimes the teeth are visible. When a person is afraid and demonstrating a sense of fear, the upper eyelids are raised high, the lips are stretched horizontally, the upper eyelids are raised and the eyebrows are furrowed together. With happiness, the eyelids are tightened and wrinkles appear in the corners of the eyes. They tend to be drawn down slightly. The mouth, we can recognise joy in a genuine smile, as the cheeks tend to be raised. When a person's feeling sad, their eyes seem empty. Sometimes the pupils contract, the eyelids droop, and the eyebrows descend in the corners. The corners of the lips face down, and the lip can sometimes pout. When somebody's surprised, the mouth opens. The upper eyelids are raised, just briefly. The brows are raised. Don't forget, all these expressions take less than a second and can easily be missed. So it's important to pay attention to another person's fast facial response to a gesture or an utterance. We've come to the end of the podcast, but here are some useful publications if you'd like to know more about non-verbal communication. Thank you for listening.